All right, so now we are recording. So we're going to get started with why use HubSpot and NetSuite together. So high level, why are those two systems good when you use them together? A whole bunch of different reasons. And for a lot of you who might already have both systems, you probably understand why we want to use them together. But firstly, we have HubSpot is a CRM, a sales enablement platform, which focuses on managing your customer lifecycle journey, your customer interactions, your marketing automation, your sales automation, all of those kinds of things. And that is your ERP, which manage your business processes like your finance, your inventory, supply chain management, even some HR. So the two systems really cover the entire life cycle of a customer. And so when you have both of those systems and you have integrated them together, you can see a lot, especially the ones that I have listed here, which, first of all, eliminating duplicate data. We find that oftentimes companies who are using disparate systems for things like their financials and then their sales on another system and then their marketing on a whole other system are unable to really keep their data clean because they're seeing duplications between systems when they have to pass that manually, which leads us to point two, which is that this integration reduces manual data entry. We have automated synchronization at certain trigger points. This saves time and reduces human error because you no longer have to worry about someone having to take a lead from marketing, enter it into your sales platform, and then someone has to take that customer once it's sold in the sales platform and manually enter it back over into the NetSuite. That is causing that there's so much room for human error in that area. And so having it automatically synchronized like this really provides it really reduces a lot of the risk of duplicates and bad data. It provides end-to-end visibility. This is what I was saying about the full customer journey. Get a 360 view of your customer interactions across all of your departments. And we know that it's no longer just marketing or just marketing and sales that are part of the revenue generating departments in your company. Every department in your company is responsible for revenue and revenue generation, customer service, operations. Everybody can help the customer experience. Therefore, everybody can generate revenue from existing customers, from reviews of existing customers and things like that. And so being able to see that full visibility of everything that happened from the first time someone visited your site all the way through to the last time they signed a contract with you, to the last time you shipped a piece of inventory, that's really, really beneficial and something that you get when you have this integration. It enhances your sales forecasting. So that kind of ties into the previous one, but if you have real-time inventory data, if you have real-time billing data, real-time payment data from your customers in your ERP, and you can sync that over into your CRM where your sales forecasting is happening, then you're really able to improve what you're casting on and when you're forecasting it and get those higher level analytics that your sales leaders might need to be more proactive in their planning. Number 6, and this is an important one for a lot of teams, is it boosts collaboration. So when you're sharing that data across systems, you're allowing the different teams who work in those systems to be able to communicate and make better decisions together, unified around one goal, as opposed to having to communicate just by talking to each other, having to get on a call. Some people have different goals. Maybe marketing and sales think a different thing is qualified. And so when you have it all together in one place, your team's able to work together a lot more smoothly. And lastly, it improves the customer happiness. So back to everything that I've said before, but everything that could lead up to a loss of customer data, to a customer having information to someone on your team, or to a customer feeling like there was a different message from marketing to sales to service to finance. When they're getting different messages from different people, different departments, when they're having to repeat their information, that causes a lot of frustration. And so when you have a system that is all working together and sharing data together, your customers feel like they're receiving a unified customer experience and they're going to be happier. And when customers are happier, they're going to spend more money. So we want customers to be happy all the time, all throughout their entire customer journey, because they are the best place that we can generate revenue. I believe existing customers are something like 50% more likely to buy again, or it's 50% easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to get a new one. So we really want to make sure that they have that happiness all throughout their journey. All right, so next up, so now we know, you have both systems, or you have NetSuite and you're going to add HubSpot to it to get that advanced sales enablement, those advanced marketing tools, and now you need to integrate. So which type of integration to choose? There are three main types of integration to HubSpot. The first one is the native integration. This is the integration that comes with HubSpot, and that's if you get HubSpot and you go into the app marketplace, which is a really cool place where you can find all kinds of integrations that are preset. You go into the app marketplace, you search for NetSuite, you will find this integration that you can simply turn on. When you turn on this integration, you'll do some customization of your specific requirements for your fields, and then it's going to work from that sort of preset platform. And so that is the first choice that some people turn to. But secondly is the custom integration option. Custom integration is literally what it says. It is building using the APIs, private apps, and creating a full custom coded integration between your HubSpot instance and your NetSuite instance. This is all done in code, so it does require a developer to do it. But a custom integration is where people with a more complex need look. We're going to dive a lot deeper into the native and the custom integration in a moment. And the third option is to go with a third-party integrator. Zapier is the most common one, but there are other options, and you'll find them on the web if you just look up HubSpot NetSuite integration or anything like that. That is another option, is to go with a third-party integrator, and we'll look at why you do that and what kind of options you would get in terms of those integrators above the native or instead of custom, etc. Okay, so the native integration. I've got some pros and cons, and then some specific technical limitations that I think it's really that anyone considering this kind of integration be aware of. So the pros of using the native integration are, of course, the ease of use. This built-in integration is more user-friendly and easy to set up without that extensive technical knowledge, without that sort of coding knowledge. Now, you still need someone fairly technical, because you still need someone who sort of understands how all of these integration fields and processes work, but you don't necessarily need someone who is able to program that code. And so it is doable without a technical developer. You just need someone who knows a lot about all of your backend systems and fields to do that. Of course, reliability. So these integrations are maintained by HubSpot. So you know that they're going to keeping it updated, and they're going to ensure that it's compatible with their platform changes, and they're going to provide the support that's needed when they make a change to their platform. For example, if you add a whole new object, you don't have to make any changes. The native integration, HubSpot is going to make those changes for you. They're cost effective. They are included with the platform. So if you have the correct license to be able to access the features that require the integration, then they're included with HubSpot. There's no additional cost if you have that correct license level. You just get to use it. And security, and this is related to the reliability as well, which is just that these integrations have security measures in place because they're managed directly by the platform providers. So you can trust that everything that you trust HubSpot for security-wise with everything else is also applied over to the integration. So that's all good. But there are a few cons to the native integration, and the biggest one, of course, is that it's limited. So you don't have the flexibility to customize the data syncs that you might want to do specific to your business needs. And this comes up a lot because NetSuite is so much more customizable in a way than HubSpot is. You can sort of, when you're using NetSuite, you can sort of use your own definition of what is, what is a contact, what is an account, what is an opportunity. You can kind of develop those objects how you want to, but HubSpot isn't that way. A company is a company, and so when you are trying to customize the native integration, you might find, and I'll get into some of the specifics here in a second, you might find there are some issues with the way that you're using both systems not syncing together in the way that this integration type offers. And then feature constraints. So similar to limited customization is that they don't always cover all of the functionalities that your business requires. So that might limit how usable they're to you, because they might not offer a specific feature that you're looking for in your integration. And then, and this sort of is also one of the pros, but it could be a con as well, depending on how it goes or how you look at it. And that's you are dependent on the product when you are using native integration, which means that you're dependent on HubSpot to fix issues, to make updates, to schedule the different changes that are going to happen, to come back to you with answers to your questions about how to fix something that's not working. So you are dependent on HubSpot and the integration support providers to get everything updated and changed and all of that for you. So, if you need more in-depth support, it might not always be the best option to go with that one. And a few specific limitations that I want everyone to be aware of if you are thinking about the integration. And these are some things that our developers have shared that they think will be helpful. So the first one is that the native integration does not support subsidiaries in NetSuite. So if you have in your NetSuite account, you have subsidiaries, so different lines of business, different businesses using one NetSuite platform, you are not able to sync those subsidiaries over in native integration with their separate if they have separate functionalities, if they're using different objects in different ways, that's not able to sync over. The next one is that lists in NetSuite cannot sync to HubSpot. So lists in NetSuite are not the same as lists in HubSpot. Lists in NetSuite are sort of types of drop-down properties wherein you can choose from some different options, but those do not sync over to HubSpot in the native integration because HubSpot doesn't have an object that can contain that same functionality. So you can't pull that over. Thirdly, object mappings are standard. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that sometimes the customization is limited. So in the native integration, let's say, for example, a contact in NetSuite syncs to a contact in HubSpot, and you cannot change that. You cannot take a contact in NetSuite and sync it to a company in HubSpot or something like that. You must use those standard mappings object to object. And for a lot of companies who are using NetSuite in a more custom way, just because it's so customizable and so usable in different formats, you might find that the object that you have, this is one that we have seen before, people using sales orders in NetSuite want to sync that over to deals or opportunities in HubSpot, but that's not the standard object-to-object sync. It's opportunities to deals, and so you're not able to take those sales orders and pull them over like want to do. There are limits on custom fields and custom objects. So, for example, you might find that you can't get a certain piece of information out of a custom object in HubSpot and sync it over to NetSuite, or you might find that certain custom fields don't sync over in the correct format because, let's say, it's a drop-down in one platform, but it's a free text in the other platform, and now that can't happen because it has to be the same. So there's a few some limitations there. And lastly, workarounds are possible. We all know workarounds are always possible. It's always possible to find a way to make something happen. That's using workflows in HubSpot after the sync to change the data that came into, say, the wrong place. But these can be very cumbersome for somebody with a complex business process or even a sort of a long business process. It's not ideal to have a bunch of workarounds for your sync that could cause you more trouble in the future because you have to remember to change them every time. You have to remember that they're there. You have to remember what they're changing. Of course, you need someone with the technical capacity to do those workarounds as well. And at that point, you might just want to go ahead and move to the custom integration. So I will pause for a moment at the custom integration and just the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any native integration, let me know. I don't see anything yet. I will keep checking as we go, but please jump in with questions at any time, and I'll take that moment to have a quick sip of water. All right. So the custom integration. The custom integration is what I said, the custom programmed, custom coded integration that a developer would build for you between HubSpot and NetSuite. So again, there are pros and cons and some more specifics to be aware of there. So pros of the custom integration is that it is obviously an entirely tailored solution. That means it can be designed to meet your specific business requirements, your specific workflows. It can just be fully tailored to your business. You don't have to worry about fitting your business process into defaults like you would with native integration. It's flexible. It allows for extensive customization and scalability for your business needs evolving. So you can always add something to it. You can change, you can customize it however you want. So you don't have to, again, similar to being tailored, you don't have to worry about fitting into that one. You don't have to worry about HubSpot having to update their software or their platform in order for you to update your integration. They are a competitive advantage. So having a custom solution can provide some unique functionalities that might give you an edge over competitors in the space who are not using custom solutions to do their business processes. So it might allow you to complete a process that your competitors aren't able to complete, that they have to do manually, that makes them slower, and therefore you have that competitive advantage. And fourth, and this is very important to a lot of businesses that we work with, and that is having complete control over the integration process, including how your data is managed, how your data is secured, how your data is flowing, exactly what's happening during that entire process. So that full control over the entire thing, from the design all the way to the maintenance, is really important to a lot of organizations. There are a few cons, of course, as with anything, to the custom integration as well. Of course, it's complex. Developing a custom integration requires a developer. It requires a lot of time because it can be quite time consuming to build it. And I'll get into some of the reasons why it's time consuming in a moment, but it can be time consuming to plan, build it. It can be complex in that it does require a higher cost because you have to pay a third party, you have to pay a developer to not only build it, but also to continue to maintain it. There is the maintenance burden. So you as a business or whoever you hire to build your custom integration is responsible for maintaining and updating integration. This is a resource heavy thing because you need to have someone who's always able to read all of the custom code, to read all of the happening in HubSpot and in NetSuite, and come in and review those and make those fixes, make those changes, and just make sure that everything is always working properly. So the maintenance burden does fall on you as the business rather than, of course, on the platform as with the native integration. And of course, you have your risk of error. We know that anything that is custom coded has the risk of human error in terms of somebody, you add the wrong letter to your code in one place and suddenly something's broken. So you can always introduce some bugs if it's not being properly tested, ongoing tested, not just tested one time, but ongoing tested and maintained. There's always the risk that that kind of error could happen. So then the things that are also important in terms of specific requirements to be aware of, and that custom integration requires in-depth design document, standard or default. There's no standard or default mappings when you go custom. It's easy to assume that you might use the default mappings that would come with native integration. So for example, you might assume, contact will sync to contacts. But when you're using a custom integration, this is not anywhere. This is not just documented anywhere. Document all of these things. You have to sit down and say, contacts go to contacts. This is when they flow. This is how they flow. This is what property flows to what property. This is how it works. This is what stock. So there's a lot of in-depth documentation required, and I will get into that a little bit more in a moment. Secondly, it's that the platform or business changes can cause issues that require your developer. So if, in this case, HubSpot or NetSuite made a change to their platform to maybe add something new, maybe change how a certain object works, or you as a business made a change to the way that you're doing business, you made a change to the automations that you're using, this can cause issues with the integration because it's set on something that existed when it was built that will require the developer to come back in and make those changes. Sometimes this is very small. You just change the property integration. Sometimes this is the platform added a whole new object and it has taken the place of another object. And now you need to redo the entire sync for those objects. And so that's always going to be something to be aware of, is that it's not a one-time thing. When you have custom integration, it requires that ongoing maintenance. You need to do in-depth testing and QA to launch and even to address errors. So if there's an error, you need to make sure that you have someone who can test how it's going to work once you fix it, to do QA on it, and to get that updated. So that is what to know about custom integration. Overall, the custom integration is most well suited for those companies who need more control and more flexibility. It's important to understand what kind of flexibility you might need. And a few of the things that I mentioned in the native integration earlier are things that sometimes people don't realize they need flexibility on. So for example, they don't realize that they need to change the default object sync, so the object to object. So they don't realize that they're using NetSuite in a way that is a little bit different than other companies. And so it's important to make sure that if you're looking at the native integration, that all of those specific limitations are acceptable and that it's going to work for you with all of those limitations. If it's not, you most likely are going to have to look at custom integration, but then you get to just completely control a fully tailored solution. So it's not like, oh, well, I just couldn't do one thing, so I'm going to move it from native to custom, but do everything the way that it is in the native, and I'm going to just also add this little extra. Once you move to custom, you get the full control to make it exactly the way that you want it, and exactly the way that it's going to work for your business and all of the stakeholders and all the users in your business. So you get that full flexibility. And so anybody with any sort of custom use of either platform, or people with a more enterprise level solution, usually want to go in the custom direction. But there is a third option, and that is to go for third party. So I don't have here because third party isn't something we tend to recommend a lot. I will go over a couple things regarding third party. Like I said, the most common third party integration is Zapier, but there are other options on the market if that's something that you are interested in. there are a lot of different connectors that can help with that. What are the pros of the third-party integration? The quick setup. So third-party services often provide easy setup with a less technical knowledge. So in a similar way to the native integration, you might be able to just jump in, choose the setup that you want, and then quickly just drop all of your fields in. They offer a wide range of connectors, so there's often numerous types of connectors between platforms, but especially if you're looking at multiple integrations. So you have like an integration from this to that, you want to go across, like maybe you also have e-commerce, or you also have a separate platform for any other type of service. You could use a third party because they have a bunch of different connectors to connect, say, 3 or more platforms. They're pretty scalable. Third-party integrations can often scale with your business because they can add new connectors and functionalities. Now this does, and we'll move into the first, one of the cons is that this does come with increased subscription costs. So when you're looking at a third party, you're going to pay for that third party continually over time. Comes to the native integration, of course, that is in, so you're not paying for that above your platform costs. When it comes to the custom integration, typically you would just be paying for the integration to be built. So there would be like a one-time fee, and then you would have, if you don't have a developer in-house who can do that, and then you would be looking at maintaining that. So there might be some costs there. With third parties, there are going to be ongoing subscription fees and support fees as well. And the more you need to scale, the more you need to customize, or that will come up for you. Sometimes customization can be limited. Again, the same as the native integration. The level of customization for these sort of connectors is not up to this far as custom built solutions. So you might find that there are similar limitations to the native one, in which objects can go together and things like that. You are looking, and it's important to understand all of those things when you're looking at third party and see where their limitations lie in terms of customization. Data latency is also possible, and what this means is possible sometimes that there's a delay in synchronization when you go with a third party, because obviously the data is not just running from one system to another, it's running through your third party system. And so this can affect real-time data accuracy. If the immediacy of the data sync is important to you, be aware that this is possible when it comes to third parties. And then with the con, of course, same as the last one, with the same as the native one, is that you are dependent on service provider. So downtime and issues with a company can disrupt your operations made to your platform. Again, if HubSpot or NetSuite made a change to their platform and you were using a third-party connector, and those changes to the platforms had impacted the way the integration was working, you would be dependent on that third-party connector to update their system, update their software in order for your integration to be fixed. So that's also something to be aware of there. If you have questions about third-party integrators, if you're using one, if you're looking for one, or if you're unsure about going with third-party versus going custom, maybe in terms of costs, you can always reach out and ask us. I'll have some information at the end of the slide to sort of go over that for you as well. But any questions, I'll have a look at the Q&A. Any questions or chats regarding the different types of integrations before we get into some of those tips and tricks? I don't see anything. The chat. I don't think so. Everyone is just listener today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into a couple of integration tips and some common mistakes to avoid when you are doing your integration. And this applies no matter what system you are using to integrate, whether that's native, custom, or using a third party. So these are some practical tips and some mistakes that we have seen. That, like I said, we have our own integration. So everything that we have done, that we have seen clients do, these are things that you should know. So choose your integration type carefully. Now, we just went over all of the integration types before, so I won't spend a lot of time belaboring this one, but a lot of time in programming goes in. No matter which option you choose, even if you choose the native integration, you're still going to spend a lot of time getting that programming right. You don't want to get weeks into a project only to realize at that time the system won't work for what you need it to do. Make sure to research the types of integration carefully. So research the native integration, research options for custom, research third parties. Make sure you look through all of those to see what they're going to do for you and how your business process in both HubSpot and NetSuite is going to match what that integration can provide to make sure that you have chosen the correct option for your teams and for your business requirements. And like I said, you need help looking into that. If you're not sure, reach out to a partner of the system, reach out to the support and find out how that can help you. We are always here to answer your questions as well. I'll share the LinkedIn group so you can reach out to us. We're all on there, my whole team. So you can always reach out on there. We can help answer those questions as well. Or maybe someone else in the LinkedIn group can provide some options too. So start with clean data and clean processes. This is one of the #1 issues that we see with this integration. Bad data, bad integration. When you start your integration, cleaned up your data before you've smoothed out your processes, you're not going to end up with a clean integration. You're going to end up aren't working the way you want it to. End up with data issues. You're going to end up with processes that are difficult for people to use, and you're also going to end up with messy technical integration, messy code, because you want to change things time and things aren't working. So you're updating them, and now nobody really knows what's going on. With your data, make sure to deal with duplicate. Very important, and the reason that I say that is because HubSpot and NetSuite handle duplicates a little bit differently. So they have different unique identifiers, different objects, or cannot have different types of duplicates. So understand the duplicate rules in both systems. Make sure you know that there are duplicates of data in your whichever system you're syncing into the other one. Sometimes they go HubSpot to NetSuite, sometimes they go NetSuite to HubSpot. Make sure you've dealt with duplicates in a way that the system that is receiving the information can handle those duplicates or can deal with them, or that you don't, best possible outcome, that you don't have duplicates when you try to move the stuff over. Missing information. Because the sync relies on information to trigger other processes, you need to make sure that you have your all of your data there. So if you have a whole bunch of companies in your database that are missing an industry, but part of your sync says that certain industries go to different places throughout the sync, then it's not going to work when you try to import those thousands of companies that are missing that information. So make sure you have either fixed the missing information or that your sync doesn't rely on pieces of information, not just your sync, but the process that happen post-sync. So workflows that you have in HubSpot or NetSuite, assignment rules, things like that, don't rely on information that's not there, because that's going to make it seem like the integration's not working. It's going to make the process difficult. It's going to cause a lot of frustration. There's a lot of other things that you can do with fixing up your data. Make sure it's up to date. Do you want to move things that are really old, or do you just want to move things from the last 2 years? How do you want to deal with stuff that is out of date since you've changed how you use it? So all of those things are important decisions to make with your data before you start integrating. Similar to that is also the processes. So with the processes, it's important to make sure all of your stakeholders and users are on the same page about how that data is going to be used and how it's going to work. It is way too frequent that we see companies come in, the main decision maker for the project comes in and says, yes, it's going to look like this. This item is going to sync into this one, and then that's going to happen. and all seems good. And then, we get to the point where the integration is complete and someone who's actually using the system or another stakeholder comes in and says, be this way, this doesn't work for my process, and I need this data also. And so that's why it becomes super important to make sure that everybody who's using that data, everybody who's using that system, it is clear what's happening in the sync, how it is being mapped, when it is mapped, what's being overridden, what's not being overridden, etc., to make sure that everybody has agreed, not just that they're clear on it, that everybody has agreed on it, and that it's all ready to go before you start building those processes. Having a detailed map. So make sure that you have a detailed data mapping, including the flow of your data, the direction that it's moving, and when the direction is changing, when the direction is only one way, a property map. There's a whole bunch more, which we could get into, to avoid the loss of data. So a detailed map, even if you're using the native integration, even if you're going through a third party that has some mapping, make sure you start with a detailed first. So what you want to do is lay out all of your objects. So if you contacts, companies, opportunities, sales orders, quotes, whatever object, like tickets, whatever object that you have in your system. And this applies not just to the HubSpot NetSuite integration, but to any integration that you might have. Lay out all of the fields within that object and explain how it's mapping. So this field in HubSpot is going to this one. Maybe the name is different. Maybe the format is different. It's custom, then you could use a different format. And you can say this field is going to this field. It's not just that. You also have to say this field is going to this field. Are there any limitations on that? Will it not override if this has already happened? Will it not override if it's in this deal stage? And then also backwards. So is there the other flow? If you sync it from HubSpot in NetSuite, now it's in there, it gets in NetSuite. Does that sync back to HubSpot? And if so, again, all of the same information. Does that override it? Is there any conditions at which it doesn't override existing data? Are there certain times that it goes? Is it only at the end of the day because you don't want to disrupt anybody's salesperson's ongoing process? Or is it immediate that it needs to happen? So all of those are important things to do, basically, for at least every group of properties, if not every individual property, so that you can make sure that it all works. And this is a large piece of time. This is what I was mentioning. It can be time consuming, especially because this is a little bit more in depth when you go with custom, but it is still something you need to do with the native integration. So secondly, really think about what you want to sync, what you want to move, and how exactly each thing is going to work before you actually jump into programming. So what I said before exactly, how is this property going to work when it moves over? And what's it going to do? What automation is going to happen after that might require it to come in a certain way, in a certain format? And so you have to consider those things before you start programming. And then also ensuring that all of your business process perspectives are included in the mapping and process discussion. So this is the same as what I previously said. Everybody who has a different perspective on how the business works, on how the process works, needs to be included all the way from the very early mapping into the of the sync as well, so that everyone's on the same. The next one we have is be careful when you're working in a sandbox. The sandbox feature makes it integration processes outside of your live or production environment, but it has some limits. So we have sandboxes in HubSpot, and we have sandboxes in NetSuite. And what you can do, create a sync. You can create your sync between both sandboxes, where you can test and create everything you need. However, very important, the number one thing, HubSpot doesn't just have a sandbox go live button. There's no single button to click to just make everything in the sandbox live in production. The sandbox is sort of designed for testing. So you need to document everything you did in the sandbox in HubSpot, everything you changed, to make sure you know exactly what you built so that you can recreate it in your production environment when you need to do that. In NetSuite, something we've seen is that the differences between your sandbox and your production environment can be difficult to detect. Because NetSuite is so expansive, because there's so much happening, because there's so much customization of what the objects even are, they mean to your business process. Something that's not quite the same between the two environments, it can be difficult to tell what that is so much as customized. And then when there's something that's different, and you go to move the sync from sandbox to production, it can be hard to know why it went wrong and what was different between each of those things. So that's why we want to keep an eye on that and make sure that everything is the same. Okay, I think this is our final. Oh no, my last tip here is get a professional developer. Custom integration 100% requires a developer who understands software and development practices, who can actually do the coding of your custom integration. That's clear. But even if you have a native integration, you want to get working properly. A developer, now and then when I say developer in this case, it's a little bit looser because it's not necessarily someone who's able to do the actual custom code, but someone who understands integration best practices, custom dev best practices, and someone who knows both of your systems inside out and can understand errors, sort of troubleshoot those kinds of errors on the back end of the integration, because even the native integration, right, it has those codes for errors that you need to be able to read and understand. So knows both of your systems, who knows your processes, who knows your data, person to work on mapping. Typically, this is a developer. It's not always. Sometimes it's an admin for the systems, like HubSpot admin. But you want to get someone who has this ability working with you on, and then your testing and stuff of your integration, especially if you have automation happening post-integration. So while it's not related to the integration directly, you know, a workflow that triggers because the integration sends some data over, if you have that happening, mapping is going to be slightly more complex, and it's even more important to how it works together and can see the full picture. Here's a quick pro tip. We always recommend version control for the integration code being outside of HubSpot, maybe somewhere like GitHub. HubSpot does have version control for your code for your integration, but we always recommend also having it outside so that you can have that sort of a different view of it, a view of it that might not be, that's not in any way viewed by the platform itself. So have your version control somewhere else as well, just in case. That's a recommendation that we always give that a developer most likely would also agree that they need to have if you were going direction. All right, so we're at our final 10 minutes here. I don't see any questions in the queue, but I will give it a moment to see if anyone has anything. Go ahead and drop those in. If not, I would like to invite everyone to join the Sales Enablement user group on LinkedIn. There's a QR code here. We can also send that in the follow-up email that you get ready. You probably also got it into your invite emails as well. But you can join this LinkedIn group. This is where we post upcoming events and other useful information, some ebooks and stuff that we have. We'll post the recording of the event as well on our YouTube, but we'll post the recording as well, so you can grab that. And also, always feel free to reach out with questions or at any time. I have dropped my email down there And so you can always send me an email and let me know if you have any questions, if you want to get someone to look at your integration, if you need support, if you're not sure which type of integration to choose. We're always happy to help you out there. So feel free to reach out at any time. But looking forward to connecting with everyone on the LinkedIn group. We'll be sharing the downloadables for your information afterwards. And let me stop my share. Okay, so yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. This will conclude the presentation. We're looking forward to continuing to see you in Hugs going forward throughout the year. And hopefully you were able to gain some valuable information. Like I said, please feel free to reach out at any time if you need to. And we will see you all again later. Have a wonderful day.